Okay, so I'm going to show you something, and it's this. It's a work in progress, nothing too fancy yet, nothing finished, obviously pretty empty still, but maybe you see the reminiscence to this. So that's Zebra3, and that's our free version of Zebra. And yeah, what we're working on is basically a new version of it, which will then be called Zebra3, or short for, Zebra3 free version. And what you can see is that we're focusing on these two editors here, the one for waveforms and the one for MSEGs. So in the same position, and yeah. And the reason we focus on these is because we are making them completely new and with completely new features, and particularly in a way that they actually act and work the same, because these ones don't. So this one, you can do this, and here you can't, right? So the points always stay in the same order. Here you can do this and that and that, and here you can't. This one works like this, can have different curvatures, and this one doesn't. This one instead has multi-selection and one can smooth things, and this one doesn't. It zooms. This one doesn't zoom. So over the years, Zebra has gotten like a multitude of these different kinds of editors, and let me just quickly show you that here are oscillator editors, here are scaling editors, which set like volume scaling or something, or key velocity scaling. Here again, the MSEGs, which, and I don't even know how to set a point right now. I think here you have to command click to set a point. Here you have to insert a point with a right click. So yeah, over the years, things have become a little bit crazy. And then there's this one, which is the mapping editor, and it can have loads of these things that you can draw, but it doesn't have this curve thing, even though it would be totally useful there as well, probably. And then LFOs, they can have user waveforms, and yet another editor for the same thing. So the idea for Zebra3 is to unify all these editors, so you really just have one type and it works the same across everything. And also important for something I'm going to show is that the fancy editors in Zebra also have like these big versions, right? So where you can edit things in more, in a more detailed fashion. And Zebra has morphing oscillators, right? These things, which is something that a spline or a curve can do. But it doesn't do that for the MSEGs, unfortunately, even though they're also curve-based, and they probably could also morph if they wanted to, or if we had envisioned that idea. But I guess we just haven't, and it has grown over the years, and it is what it is. And so now we're here. These are the new editors, and they're pretty mature, and you can already see there's a slight resemblance between the two. And both operate, they're pretty much the same editor. It's the same kind of curve in each. So here you just double click to set a new point, right? And then when you can move a point, you can change the curvature, and the same in the MSEG editor. Yeah, you can move them, and you can have multi-selection, hey, all of that, and everything just works, and it's nice and snappy and all of that. And you can zoom in and out and in and out. and you can zoom in and you can double click here and zoom out and double click, be back where you zoomed into, and all of that. So that's that thing. So the idea is these editors will work just the same as Zebras, but you know, consistently and hopefully a bit better. You know, everything has grid snap and stuff, and no worries, you can set the grid wherever you want. As you can see, there's already 2 different kinds of grid here, and yeah. But the actual point is that there are bigger versions of these editors, just like in Zebra, and they are in this demo plugin here. That's not really doing much. They're under these 2 tabs. And what I'm going to do is to disregard this. We're going to look at these 2 tabs. And that's what this looks like. So this is the editor for waveforms. And this is the beginning of the editor for multi-stage envelopes. I mean, they're pretty mature, but with the envelopes, I haven't got things yet to set loop points or, and there's also no playback of them. But the editors are otherwise identical, and the oscillator already has a playback device here. You can have an actual oscillator. We can actually hear it. You can hear this waveform right now. I can play it. That's this waveform. Yeah, I can just with backspace, can delete those points, and hopefully that works. Didn't, of course. Ah, yeah, sawtooth, fantastic. Okay, that's that. And the next thing I'm going to show is how or what options you have to edit in the big editor. And it starts here with this tab and with this view. So over the years, I think these waveform editors and also MSEJ editors have become increasingly popular if they have a grid. You know, like this thing here where you can set like, here is like 32 or 4 or 8, and in Y direction is vertically the same. And let me just show you quickly the one that comes to mind that probably most people know, and that's the one from Serum, which I got here. Let me just make it a little bit bigger. There. Yep. So here you can edit a waveform. This got this kind of grid here, and you can also set a different size. How do you do it? Yeah, 8 or whatever, 8 and 8, and you choose a thing here or a tool, and then you can draw this tool here or this one, right? Or yeah, or you can have fancy. Yeah, you can have smooth transitions, and you can move things up and down. But here, see, you move it up, and then information that was there before gets lost. That's a pet peeve of mine, and I prefer things not to get lost. But what it also does, it's got noise. That's something, right? You can set noisy parts, random things. That's something that we don't have. And for a reason, and I will explain that later as well. So what these editors do, basically, you have these bits, you place them somewhere, and what they create is they create a waveform in the background. And it's a waveform with, I guess, 2048 samples, and it's really just a sample-based thing and a sample-based waveform. And we wanted to bring this kind of paradigm to curve-based waveforms, because these are curves, these are spline curves. And we also wanted to reimagine it a little bit differently, where, yes, you have a grid, but that grid is not the size of your of your tool, it's the size of, or it's the granularity of your tool, basically. Let's say we want this thing here, and we want to draw it in here. So we just do that, right? We can also do this and this or that, right? And what we can also do is we can mirror these shapes here, right? And that didn't work for whatever reason. And we have to switch this one off, I guess. So, boom. No, no, it works. Okay. You see, I haven't used that in a while. Boom. So you can mirror them up and down, whichever way you want. So you have all these different shapes that are useful. And here, like an envelope, you know, when you do an envelope shape, yay, like a quick way to do an ADSR or something. But there's another thing, and that's this option here. This option automatically flips and turns and whatever your shape, so that, you know, you don't only go this way, you can also go that way or backwards, right? And the same with this one. You can go this way, you can go that way, you can go this way, you can go that way, and this way, that way. So this way, this thing is a very, very fast method to achieve the same and make let's say basic waveforms and everything like easy as it gets. Like you have also individual sine wave segments here, and if you wanted to do actual sine wave, you would probably have to figure out how to do that. It's like this, right? This is a part, and our grid is currently, oh, that's good, yeah. And then this is no, the other way around. This one, that's a part of a sine wave, and then you can use this or this way and this way. Oh, there it is. Right, you can do a sine wave this way. But you can, I will show you that you can do a sine wave much easier later on. And then we have this tool, which also does this, you know, you can shift a whole bunch of your rows here at once. And when you go back, it still looks the same. You know, you can just do this. Okay. And you can make lines, square wave, like that and that, easy peasy. Okay, so this editor really just gives you super quick access to all sorts of curves, and it's pretty much as easy to use as all these editors that have been fashionable lately. Yeah, that's just to show you that Zebra3 will have excessively easy waveform and envelope editing. And yeah, so let's enter the next stage. I'll show you how to make a sine wave simpler here. You do this, and then you go into this editor here, and this is like a, you know, like a CAD application, like the editors, you know, from Blender or vector-based tools like Illustrator or anything. And this one has got a couple of tools which I will show in detail, but let's first start with this one just for the fun of it. That's the rotate tool. The rotate tool does that, right? So if you want to have a sine wave, you just rotate your thing here, and you can also have a selection. That's the same multi-selection that we saw before in the easy editor. I can also just rotate this part of the curve, right? That kind of thing. So you can do a lot of fancy stuff here. So let's go through it in detail, and I'll just in it. Oh, there you go. So the main tool is this tool here. That's the arrow tool. That's the tool that you have by default, and it's the one which sets the curvature of a curve. and it lets you add new points with double click. It lets you select something and move that around or do this or whatever, right? So it's the main tool that you have to manipulate any points. And when you drag this, it of course snaps to the grid here, as you can see, boom, right? But you can switch all of that on or off, like that's what you got here. So this is the grid snap option. I can switch it off if you want, you know, if you want that, if you want, and if you don't want it to snap. You can also just say you want to only snap to the X position. Yeah, there it snaps, there it doesn't, or just the Y position, or both. And that's the default. That's what you usually want. Right, we're still with the arrow tool here. These are options for the arrow tool. And here is an option which is which defines what happens with the curve when we reach our borders here. So this is the keep shape curve. That's the default. There's also a squish. Squish does this. It squishes the shape against the boundaries of the waveform. Right? Squish also does something else. It doesn't care. Oh, it does. Oh, it keeps everything together no matter what. Okay, yeah. But there's another form which is keep order. In keep order, the points cannot overtake each other. Right, so you can have this and it only goes from here to there. Yeah, so you can escalate from squish over keep the shape, which is like this, right? Over to keeping the order of the points intact. So these are mostly all options for the arrow tool. And another option is the curvature that you're manipulating. So instead of what we had, we can have the S curve. There's a pointy version of the L curve, right? There's the other. Now it comes out with either horizontal or vertical starting points, basically. And the same with the S curve, right? Like this and like that. Yeah, so these are the different options for the curvatures that we have right now. And then, because you can move this, right? You can also set the constraints of whether to move it only in X direction. Now I can move it up and down, or in Y direction, or move X and Y. So you can actually click this thing, then it's like the arrow tool only for selection and moving points. And the arrow tool also has the curvature and a couple of other things. So that's that tool. The next important tool is this tool. It adds points. So for one thing, you can just, without a double click, add points anywhere you want. But you can also, and let me just show you this with like this curve. You can also hover a curve and cut it open at that point. And then the curve actually keeps its curve, well, its curvature, right? So you can insert points into an existing curved waveform whatsoever without destroying the waveform. So that's that tool. And then there's another tool that's really cool. And I might go back to let me just quickly go back to a sine wave. And this tool, let me just only select this point. I just select this point. This is the point split tool. It does this, right? It adds, it splits one point into two and squishes everything else apart. And that is very useful for when you want to generate waveforms that are used for phase distortion or FM. One can do very smooth transitions, very smooth waveforms that are super suited for phase distortion, FM, anything. And I can also show you another tool. Let me just put this back together here where it was. Once you do this and that, now it's aligned. This is only 1 point again. The 2 points that were merged on top of each other were like dissolved only to 1 point. And another thing one can do is with the curvature you can select everything. Where is it here? And if you just click and don't do anything, and then you straighten all the curves. And then another important thing is you have a right-click menu, and you can, if you have a triangle waveform, you can say sine-o-matic it, and then boom, you got a sine wave there, right? And it can do other things. It can flip upside down. Flip X doesn't do anything because it's symmetric. It can beautify things. That's a smoother curve than the sine curve or sine wave. And it can do a lot of little things. You can copy and paste stuff. You can copy this and you can choose another waveform and you can paste. And there it is, right? Now you've got the same waveform here and there, and all that. And here's another tool that's quite maybe important, maybe not so important. It's for those who want to draw by hand, right? Usually when you do that, you straight away beautify, or no, okay, sine-o-matic it. That looks better, right? And yeah, let's go back and erase and add another point here. Sure, go back to that. And flip Y, and there we are. Good. These are basically the main tools to create points and to manipulate points and lines individually without any further context. Then there is another set of tools below which manipulate larger sets of points. We've already seen the rotate tool, which again does this, right? Like that. But there's also a tool, let's take the second one, that does something else which is crazy. Like we do this and we take this and put this here. Let's put it there, right? And we select this, and this tool creates copies, right? It's like an array tool. It's called multiply, yeah. And that's very useful, of course, to create envelopes, arithmetic things, or whatever, whatever you have. And this tool here, right next to it, lets you warp these kinds of things in a certain way. Like, let's take this point here. You can do this and that. And then sometimes some of these tools have options below them when there's a little triangle. So this one has other warp options, and here's the exponential one. You see that the distances between these things become incremental or decremental, right? And there's another version of it which is cubic, which is like a brutal one. And this can be used to create like bouncing ball envelopes and stuff. But it also sounds funny. Let me just play you this, what it sounds like. Yeah, so you can do these kinds of funny sounds. Oh, here the octaves are up on this keyboard, so it's great for bass sounds. Yeah, so that's that. And then there's another tool which I would like to show first. If you have something like this and yeah, like a little thing here, and you want to scale that, right? So you'd take this, or no, let's just take this. Then here is the scale tool. And with the scale tool, you can do this and that, and you know, you just scale it. And again, things snap to the grid wherever. Yeah, so you can use these parts of your curve and scale it to whatever. And what we can also do, let me just quickly go in here. You know, you copy this. And if I paste it now, it's going to be within these boundaries of the selection, right? So I pasted that into the boundaries of the selection. Good, that's another thing that's important. And let's see what else we got. Let's go back to an init setting. And let's go with this tool. So one tool that's also important for envelopes, preferred with 5 points, is this tool. It creates an exponential shape, right, like this and that. And boom. So while you drag it, it actually creates a preview shape that's not perfect. Sometimes it has little creases, but then when you release the mouse button, it becomes a perfect, nearly perfect exponential curve, which is useful for envelopes and things like that. And yeah, and then we're almost through with it. I have to show yet another tool, which is this tool. And this tool rotates the curvature of a single point like this, right? And that brings us to the next set of tools, or to the next level of editing, which is showing the actual handles, because these are Bezier curves, and Bezier curves are defined by having a bunch of points that are actually on a curve and points that change the curvature. And when this handle option is on here, every selected point shows its handles, and then you can do any form that you wish with it. And like when you have something like, let's say, this and that, and we move this here, and you want to align those handles, that's where the handle rotate tool comes in as well. You just click and boom, then they're aligned. The same can happen here. Oh, they were already aligned. These were also already aligned. And if you do this here, then because there's a constraint here, it can't go higher than the highest point, or every handle has to stay within the square or rectangle that's made up from the two surrounding points. What's important as well, let's see. So you see this curve now starts on the top here and ends on the bottom there. And sometimes you want to have these aligned, or not aligned, but closed, and you choose this. You can close it on the front or in the back. That sometimes is useful, and you can also just keep it open. So these were some of the most important tools here. There's another set of options here. This is the selection tool, right? I switch these handles off. And with Shift, of course, you can add to a selection. You can have, selections don't necessarily have to be tied together. And this tool is very quick and useful, but sometimes you don't get the selection that you want. So there's another version which is like a rectangle that you can open. This is the one that people probably most recognize from applications that do graphics design or anything. It's like a rectangle that you open, and sometimes it works. Sometimes you have to start dragging within this editor, of course, and yeah, that's sometimes there's a couple of points there on the top and on the sides, but yeah. Anyhow, so what else is there? If you wanted to quickly line these points up, you can line them up. If you want to distribute them, you can distribute them, and you can just use this tool, the arrow tool, and do this, and all that kind of stuff. Good. That's the main points of this editor, and I think I'll stop here for now, and then once I have a coffee I show you the morphing part of it. Okay, I'll stop it here for now.